Topic at hand are the nominees to two very important leadership positions at the Commerce Department and at HUD. At Commerce, the Director General of the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service and Assistant Secretary for Global Markets needs to stand up for the interest of U.S. exporters overseas. And that includes addressing barriers to entry in foreign markets and attracting foreign direct investment, which we call FDI, into the U.S. There are a lot of U.S. businesses and jobs depend on exports. And the position is critically important right now as COVID-19 led to the imposition of new trade barriers and a sharp decline in global FDI. The Assistant Secretary will face a host of challenges right off the bat. The previous administration's trade wars contributed to alienating a number of our allies. For instance, many of them imposed retaliatory tariffs on U.S. exports after Section 232 tariffs labeled their steel and aluminum exports a national security threat. Buy American policies that seek to limit foreign access to U.S. government procurement contracts have caused our trading partners to threaten or actually do the same, and that potentially takes away a major export market for U.S. businesses and employees and workers. Foreign countries also frequently impose non-tariff technical barriers to trade to limit U.S. entry and protect their domestic industries. The Assistant Secretary must oversee efforts to convince foreign governments to overcome these concerns and remove these obstacles and allow our businesses market access. Another major responsibility of the Assistant Secretary is to oversee U.S. government efforts to attract foreign direct investment into the United States. The U.S. has long been a magnet for FDI due to our combination of a skilled workforce, deep, broad capital markets, strong legal protection for investors, and of course, the strongest economy in the world. But FDI has faced challenges. In 2020, global foreign direct investment fell 42%, according to the UN Conference on Trade and Development. And I'm concerned that the Biden administration is making attracting foreign direct investment more difficult. The administration has proposed burdensome regulations and corporate taxes that would make it less desirable to invest in the United States. And the administration's recent support of a waiver of intellectual property protections for vaccines sends a very disturbing signal to investors in any kind of intellectual property intensive industries. So if confirmed, I hope you'll use your position to promote policies that will achieve the mission entrusted to you, and that means giving a voice to U.S. exporters in administration policy decisions and advocating for policies that make the U.S. an attractive destination for foreign direct investment. Let me turn to HUD. The HUD's General Counsel plays a really important role advising the agency on what it can and cannot do. HUD needs a General Counsel who will help ensure effective oversight of federal tax dollars that HUD spends. And that includes rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. And it's critically important given the $60 billion given to HUD this past year, the $68 billion requested for the next fiscal year. And unfortunately, HUD has already made some poor choices on this front. For example, the agency has made it easier for illegal immigrants to get emergency housing vouchers by waiving regulations that require verification of citizenship or legal immigration status. In addition, HUD has removed sensible restrictions on Puerto Rico's use of disaster recovery funds. The General Counsel must ensure that HUD is complying with the law, despite whatever political pressures may come to bear. In other words, he can't be a yes man. In fact, the General Counsel needs to be willing to push back on policies that are inconsistent with the law. Unfortunately, we've seen HUD ignore certain laws recently. For example, Congress has explicitly prevented any part of a borrower's down payment for an FHA loan from being financed by an entity benefiting from the mortgage transaction. But as I noted in a recent letter to HUD, the agency continues to turn a blind eye to circular funding schemes where FHA borrowers finance their own down payment assistance in contravention of the law. Second, the General Counsel needs to ensure that all legal requirements with respect to rulemaking and guidance are followed. And that means meaningfully considering all input from stakeholders, preparing all supporting materials to accompany significant policy guidance, and completing regulatory impact analysis, which describe the economic burdens on stakeholders. Thirdly, the General Counsel needs to be readily available and work with Congress to ensure that laws are, in fact, faithfully implemented, especially including members of this committee. Let me close by saying, Mr. Venkatraman, I look forward to hearing how you plan to effectively support U.S. exporters overseas and attract foreign investment to the U.S. And Mr. Smith, I look forward to hearing how you will ensure that HUD faithfully complies with the law and conducts thorough oversight of how it spends taxpayer dollars. If confirmed, you both will have really important missions to fulfill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Toomey.